Take your Bibles, if you would, to Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6 this evening. Right afterwards, we'll head out for our afterglow, taking off from here. Parents, we should be back, Lord willing, around 9 o'clock, is what we shoot for. Daniel chapter 6. We're going to pick up where we left off last week, reading in Daniel 6. Pick up in verse 11. I'll just read a couple verses as we'll be kind of going through them as we go through this passage. Daniel chapter 6, beginning in verse 11, the Bible says, "These things, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication." Let's go back up to verse 10 to get a little bit of the context. Verse 10, what had happened was there had been a law changed that the people those days could only pray to the king, and it was created to catch Daniel. So Daniel, in verse 10, now when Daniel knew that this writing of this law was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, This thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which altereth not. Then answered they and said before the king, That Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, or, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Father, as we look at this passage this evening, I pray, Father, you'll give us wisdom. Give us wisdom as we look at it. Open our hearts to what we can learn from it. Father, for most in this room, this is going to be considered a very familiar passage. And it's easy for us to look at these passages and see them as just stories for children. And Lord, miss out on some of the great truths that can be pulled for us in our daily lives. Lord, there's no doubt that the life Daniel lived in Babylon is truly a resemblance of where we're at today in America. Lord, help us to learn these principles tonight that are so true of how it was that Daniel was able to be delivered from this den of lions. We ask you give us wisdom. Speak to our hearts tonight, for it is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The message I've entitled tonight is Keys to Godly Prosperity. You could also title it as How It Is That Day Daniel was freed from the lion's den, because really one gives the other. Daniel was freed from this den of lions, a chance that should have killed him, and again, in a divine and supernatural way, God frees his servants in Babylon. Why is it that he did that? Later in the passage, we'll read at the end that God prospered Daniel. You ever wish, you hear this all the time, in Joshua 1:8, it tells us at the end of the verse that we can have good success. And you often look at this idea, what does it mean, good success spiritually? I mean, I think if I were to ask for a raise of hand, who wants to be successful as a Christian? Don't raise your hand, by the way, okay? Because if you don't, that probably means you're asleep, and then I can point you out, okay? But if I were to ask, we'd all raise our hand and say, I want to be successful as a Christian. Here's the question. What does that look like? What does that mean? Does it mean that we never have spiritual problems? Does it mean that we never fail in sin? Does it mean that we are always perfect and always great? And I think sometimes we can view it wrongly. I think some churches pin it wrongly. Some churches come to you and say, if you can do these, if you stay away from these 9 nasty no's, all these things you stay away from, you're spiritual. By the way, I do believe that God has asked us a list of things in the Bible to abstain from, to stay away from. Any religion does that, and not just religion, but Christianity. Christ has said, friendship with the world is enmity with God. There are things in the world that God has asked us to abstain from. I think sometimes we can fight over some things that God does not mention, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. But there is a part where God's asked us to be separate. God's asked us to do those things. But it's not just abstaining from a couple of things. It's not just being in church, because that's true. You all would be successful. I'm not saying you're not successful, but this would be the key. I believe that when you come to church, here's what you're given. You're given the steps from God's Word to be able to be successful. Just coming and just fitting what you think is necessary to be in church does not make you successful per se. You're given the tools to be successful. to be not only prosperous and successful, but to be freed from the battles. You know, at the end of the passage, Daniel was pinned as prosperous. But prior to that, he was saved in the belly of a den, a place where he should have been killed, a place where he probably, when he was thrown in, should have never even been able to hit the ground. You know, the story tells later when Daniel was freed from the den of lions that those who accused him were thrown in there, and they didn't even hit the ground. That was how hungry the lions were. Daniel got down there without a problem. How is it? Why could Daniel be free from that trial? Why? By the way, I said that wrong. Daniel was not freed from the trial. Daniel was freed in the trial. All right, I said that wrong. Daniel was not free from being thrown in the den of lions. God didn't come to the king and said, change it because he is my servant. No, Daniel was taken from his room to the king, thrown into the lion's den. Daniel was not freed from the trial. He was freed in the trial. And as the soloist said this morning in that song, a lot of times his mercy is seen in the middle of trials. Let me tell you one of the reasons why, because sometimes that is where you get to see God do absolutely amazing things. How many of you have had a chance to go to Sight and Sound and see Daniel? We've seen that, all right? One of my favorites, mostly because they bring helicopters from the ceiling. All right, I think that's awesome. But the premise, just watching down there. Now, they surmise that the visions came to Daniel that night. There's a lot of reasons that can't be 100% accurate, but it's a unique idea. But in the play, at least, they showed as he saw visions of really today. And how he was prophesying of the end of the world, the future, and if you look at it, I think it fits today. And I think it's very true. He found this. He saw God do great things. I tell my kids all the time when I tell them the story of Daniel Lyons, especially when they're growing up. When they're real young, I'll talk about Daniel Lyons then. I'll say if he fell in, he say, Lord, save me. And we know that God shut the mouths of the lions. So I grab my kids and I say, I think that he probably used him as a pillow down there, right? Pull a couple over, lay down, put some tails, keep himself comfortable. Lions couldn't hurt him, And then my kids get mad because then I lay on top of them and stuff, a young one, I'll pin him down, he gets mad, and we wrestle, it's fun. And he hits me in the head, that hurts, and we move on, all right? But think about it. What must it have been like to be in a place like that and just watch? But see, he would not have been able to do it had he not had some principles that we're going to look at tonight. Daniel was freed from the lion's den. Daniel was prospered by God because there were things true of Daniel. And I'm going to look at those things tonight. Some things that will be necessary. These things were found out about Daniel. The first thing was Daniel was found praying. Verse 11, these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Number one, in spite of conflict, Daniel was aware. Daniel was in a position of authority. He was fully aware, as we talked last week, about this idea of the law of the Medes and the Persians. Again, this idea was simple. A king was an ultimate authority. A king could not make a mistake. So if a king signed a decree, he was not able to undo the decree because that was admitting he was wrong, and kings did not do that in those days. That was the law of the Medes and the Persians. So Daniel understood that the moment it was signed, not only did he understand he was going to probably get thrown in jail, in the den, probably fully understood why it was signed. He got on his knees. These guys had been trying to find something, an occasion against Daniel. You don't think Daniel knew that? You don't think Daniel knew that they were digging into his background? You don't think they were watching? Then the decree is signed. It's no coincidence. Daniel walks over to his window, facing open to Jerusalem, and he bows on his knees and begins to pray 3 times a day. He was found praying. You want God's prosperity? You want blessing? You want success? Then be found praying. Be found on your knees. Be found in times where you're just talking to God. Be found in times. There's been times where I have one issue when I pray. You say an issue. If I pray silently, you know what happens? Maybe you're like me. I'm gone. All right? If I'm silent, one of 2 things happens. I fall asleep, or my mind is drifting off into something else. All right? Something I've read, something I have to do. So because I think I am self-diagnosed, ADD or whatever, I struggle with keeping attention. So you know what I do? I pray out loud. So when I'm in the car, sometimes you turn on sports talk and you can only hear about a basketball player so long, all right? So you turn it off, And you just say, Lord's burden in your heart, you begin to pray. But you know what's hilarious to me? You can drive up next to somebody who is listening to rock music, killing themselves. That's normal. Someone pulls up next to me and I'm talking out loud and they're like, what's wrong with that dude? All right. Just like, hi, how you doing? All right. Some guy told me he wanted to make sure people stop looking, so he put a turned off Bluetooth on his left ear, right? They think he's talking to somebody. I was like, whatever, everybody thinks I'm crazy. We're good with it. It's okay to be found praying. By the way, he didn't establish it, he didn't set up, he just did his consistent. But let me tell you, wouldn't it be great if people were to search a way to get you, it was caught with you praying? Wouldn't it be great that if somebody wanted to accuse you of something, it was you prayed too much? Wouldn't that be awesome? Most of us begin to scratch our head and ask, when was the last time would someone catch us? Let me tell you, if you want prosperity, if you want God to bless, you have to be found praying. I could spend a lot of time talking about the whys and the importance of prayer. But I think on this Sunday night crowd, we understand the importance of prayer. We understand the power of prayer. We understand the intimacy of prayer. We understand all of that. But you know what we also understand? How the world gets in the way of prayer. You ever notice that? There are times I go to bed and I'll lay there and I'll realize, man, I should have, what happens? All the things that came in that day. You wake up late, and from the time you wake up late to the time you go to bed, you feel like you're reeling. And you realize, I didn't pray today like I should have. There comes a point. I had someone tell me this, and at that time that wasn't true in my life, and now I realize that. Comes a point when you get to the end of the day, you know how you know you've missed it? Something's missing. That's nice. When I should have. You know what I've learned? It's not that I think, I forgot to do it today. It's just that the closer you are to God in prayer and the more you see Him work, that's what you miss. You miss that intimacy. Daniel prayed 3 times a day. He spent time on his knee in front of a God who loved him, who understood his scenario. He had power because of prayer. You want power? Spend some time in prayer. Let me tell you one thing, just from my own personal experience. If you begin to get serious in prayer, and not just, Lord, bless this bunch as we munch in our lunch, all right? A little more than that type of prayer. Please, help us as my husband drives. More than just stuff like that. I have to be honest with you, when I drive, sometimes it's a spiritual thing. Everybody in my car is right with God by the time we get places, all right? Because they know they're about to possibly meet God because of my driving. It's a spiritual thing there, but it's something when you begin to really battle and wrestle with God in prayer. You know who you end up also wrestling with? Satan. There are people who say, I have less problems with Satan when I don't pray. Exactly. That is really true. You will have less problems with Satan when you don't pray. You say, really? You know why? Because God, He's not afraid of you. He's not going to go and attack people who are no threat to Him. He's going to attack those who are found praying. You say, I don't want to deal with that. Remember, greater is He that lives in me and in you than he that lives in the world. Do you know you have power over Satan? He cannot have power over you. You walk with God. He has nothing over you. Absolutely nothing. Be found praying. Why do we pray? Why do we serve? I read something this week and I thought it was an interesting point. Kind of praying and serving kind of go together in this idea. It was really written to preachers about the idea of how sometimes preachers can push people, why we give you an incentive to serve and to pray. I think I blew something. There it goes. All right. To pray and all that. Let me tell you the reasons. The first 2, by the way, I believe are wrong. If this is the reason you come to church and pray and serve, these are wrong reasons. The first one, because you feel it out of responsibility to another human, that someone has put it on you. You should be here because I would feel bad if you're not here. Okay? Don't get me wrong, an empty auditorium would be depressing. But if you're coming for that reason, or you're praying because Pastor told me to, you're gonna miss out on a lot. Number 2, out of responsibility, because Jesus died for us. Now listen to this. Follow with me, okay? Some people think I must do this because Jesus died for me. By the way, I believe we owe a lot to God because He died for us, but it was a free gift. But can I tell you something? I still don't think that's the best reason to serve and to pray. You know why we serve and pray? Because we love Him. Obligation will always end up in frustration. If you do something out of obligation to someone else, you become frustrated at the person who's obligating you. If you do it out of love. There's never obligation. To spend time with my wife, by the way, is not an obligation. Thursday night, we went Six Flags with the elementary. Beautiful day out there. I get home. I didn't have to walk as much as the other kids. There was a couple times where I had some younger ones, so some didn't want to ride, some want to ride that ride. And you know what happens when kids realize you're not looking? They run. In a place as big as Six Flags, your heart drops, all right? So I got a kid at this ride, a kid at that ride. I'm running back and forth. On 3 occasions, I'm going to a ride saying, what am I going to do with this kid? Another adult walks up. Thank you, Lord. Take care of this kid. Run back, get the kid. Happen all day long. So I get in the bus. I'm driving home. You know, my heart's pounding. I get home. I'm sitting with my wife, and I'm like, you want to go for a walk? You know why? Was I exhilarated, just wanted to walk around my neighborhood? No. I was tired. But I wanted to hang out with my wife for a little bit. I hadn't seen her all day. That is not obligation. It's not like, okay, I got to get home and spend this much time with this kid, and I got to go on the walk with my wife. It wasn't it. When you love somebody, there's no obligation under that. By the way, I hope that you understand that I think it's important for you to be in church, all right? I hope you know that I think it's important for you to read the Bible and pray. I hope you know that when Jesus died for us, boy, we owe him everything. But those obligations will only go so far. It's the love for God that will take us. That's what drives us to our knees, is a love for God. Daniel went there, not only in a time of conflict, but with a stance of courage. He didn't waver. He knew the law. He got on his knees. Number 1, he was found praying. Number 2, he was found faithful. Look at verse 16. Then king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, catch this, whom thou servest, continually. He will, he didn't ask will he said he will deliver thee. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace, and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. Then the king arose the very early in the morning, and went in haste to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said unto Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Then said Daniel to the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel, and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Then was the king exceeding glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no matter of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. Number 1, he was found praying. Number 2, he was found faithful. I'm not talking about the fact that he was freed from the den. I'm talking about a pagan king who understood the testimony of Daniel. A king, he never said our God. He said your God. He served different gods. He served pagan gods. He didn't care about Jehovah God, but he knew there was something special about this man Daniel. He knew there was something special about the God he served. And I love what it says. He didn't say, will your God save you? He said, I know your God will save you. Isn't it something that a guy who did not believe in God at all had enough faith in Daniel's God? Think about this. This man had faith in Daniel's God even though he did not believe in Daniel's God. He had faith because he watched a man who showed faith. You want prosperity? You want freedom from in the time of trials? You know what you end up? Faithful. You don't mean stick with it. You know what happens sometimes when a trial comes into our lives? We quit. And by the way, it's easy to do, and I'm not judging anybody who's done it because I can't say I haven't. Every one of us at one point hitting head on to a trial have thought about or have decided to quit. Just give up. I don't care. Some leave church, some do something else, some this or whatever. They just give up. They say things like, if God loved me, he wouldn't let me hear. By the way, God never promised to eliminate trials in our life. He just promised to be there in the middle of the trial. Life does not stop coming. Life and the battles and all the things coming aren't stopping. God doesn't say, you're a Christian, you're perfect now, your life's going to be great. God says, hey, when you're in that battle, I'll walk right next to you, and sometimes I'll carry you through. You know, in Psalm 23, where it says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Remember, he says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still water. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. That sounds wonderful. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. You know what that means? A shepherd, when a sheep was going to go wrong, would use his rod to smack the sheep to get him back in place. And as the sheep would keep going, he'd smack him again. Why? Because one sheep going will take all the sheep with him. So he would use that rod and staff to get him back in place. And reading from a shepherd's book, he said, ultimately, if the sheep kept doing it, I would break his leg and then carry it. The trials that God sometimes puts us through is just to be comfort, to keep us from going over the cliff. David said, thy rod and thy staff, those times where you have hit me, those times you've brought punishment, those times you've got my attention to keep me faithful, that brings comfort. It doesn't sound comfortable. But boy, the alternative of where I was going is so much worse. Faithfulness is not something that we can just kind of put on and be perfect. It starts, number one, with a consistent testimony. I'm going to do my best. Let me ask you a question. If I were to ask you, I say a name, and ask you what you thought of it. All right? Let me go to the older school here, okay? O.J. Simpson. What did he used to be known for? Football. Some of the teenagers, he's O.J. Simpson, all right? Now he's known for a glove. You know what I'm talking about? Now he's known for he got away with it, whatever. All right? You don't think about that. All right? When I name, let's see here, Reggie White, everybody perks up. Football player, you know. Some say Baptist preacher, all right, all that. Say Daryl Dawkins, he hit hard. You know, that kind of stuff. If I name certain athletes, my son and I joke when we were watching the NBA playoffs, I'll bring up LeBron James. Oh, he's such a bully. He's always whining on the court. I was joking last night. He got smacked over, and everybody, he's all sitting there angry to find out he got hit by his own player. I'm over there. Oh, that's funny. I was going to say, all right, that's great. When you say a name, people just assume things about you. Why do they assume things about you? Because that's what they know. That is your testimony. So when your name is spoken, what comes from it? For me, it's hyper. All right, hyper and talk fast. Those are usually the first two things that come out, or spit a lot when he preaches. You know, those are the things that people think initially when the name pops up. He must run in his sleep or something like that, right? There are certain things everybody's smiling. They don't want to laugh. It's like, I don't want to offend them, all right? I know this. I'm good with that, okay? I was talking to Tatiana at lunch, and we traveled on ensemble together. She goes, I don't know where the energy came from. I think when we traveled ensemble, I don't think she knew I was there. I sat in the corner of the van and slept, and I was the quietest guy. I'm serious. The quietest guy in ensemble. She's like, I think you were on ensemble, weren't you? I mean, I was quiet. I don't know what changed me. Kids, ministry, I don't know. But I wish I were quiet sometimes. My wife wishes I were quiet sometimes. But it's a testimony. Let me encourage you. I don't do good. I don't follow God so that someone else can think good of me. I follow God to follow Him, and my testimony establishes itself. It's not about being perceived as good, because if I'm just perceived as good, I'll put on a good front. It's just about following God and letting God take care of it. But if I follow God, my testimony will show that. You ever meet somebody, they walk in, you know, you're getting together at someone's house. Yeah, I invited so-and-so. And people in the room, oh. We won't say a name, all right? Now, you can, by the way, some of you have thought of that person right now. If you're not thinking of somebody, yeah, it's you, okay? All right, so, no, I'm joking, okay? But we don't know. Sometimes it's like, why? They're going to complain, they're going to whine, they're going to eat all the food. I don't know what it is, but there's something. Now you say, I invited so-and-so. Ooh, they're funny. This is going to be great. You know, that comes down. That's someone's reputation. It can also be a testimony. There are times I'll talk to my kids. You know, I really would love it if you become good friends with that kid. They're a good testimony. Maybe not so much over here. We all do that, by the way, as parents. We should. We should be concerned about who our children hang out with. On our street, I want my kids to spend time with the neighbors and get to know them, but I will limit that because their families and doing things differently, and I want to protect them. We do that on purpose. It comes along with a consistent testimony. It's a reflection of who we are. There's also, under this faithfulness, we see a peaceful night. The king didn't have a peaceful night. He was fasting. He was walking around. He couldn't sleep. And by my own sanctified imagination, he's up there pacing in this beautiful room with the best bed nature can offer, and Daniel's down sleeping on lions. Probably the best night's sleep he had all the time. He even had security guards. I tell you what, right? He had security guards if someone decided to jump in and rob him in the den. He was good to go. But in that peaceful night, he got to watch an angel perform a miracle. He was found praying. He was found faithful. In those times is when you'll see God work. Yeah, it's sometimes in the middle of a trial. If you want prosperity, say, God, I want to see you work. I want, if you can use the word success in Christian life, I want to see you work. I want to see you move in my home and my family. I want that. Well, then I must be praying. I must be faithful. Philippians 4, we talk about the idea that sometimes we don't need to run to anything else but the Lord to find peace in our life. Philippians 4:6, be careful or nervous or anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known unto God. Catch this, and the peace of God which passes all understanding shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Colossians 3:15 says, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also ye are called in one body, and be thankful. Both of them say, don't be anxious. Let the peace of God rule. Have you ever been in those times where situationally the world's falling apart, but yet there's peace? Because God is still working. I follow some people on Twitter and Facebook, a lot of pastors, and one of them, Kerry Schmidt, posted something. If you follow me on Facebook, you'd see I reposted it. Something along the ideas of if you're finding discouragement in the spiritual battle, remember, there's something, God's doing something great, and it's just around the corner. You know, there's some days you need the reminder of that. It's hurting right now, but God is still working. It's that peace in the midst of a storm. He was found praying. Number 2, found faithful. And lastly, he was found prospering. Verse number 25 of chapter 6. Then the king Darius wrote unto all the people, nations, and languages that dwelt in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble in fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and steadfast forever. And his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius, and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Daniel prospered. He prospered because he was found on his knees praying, because he was faithful. Under this prospering, number 1, we see there was an impact for the Lord. His prayer and his faithfulness allowed him to have an impact where a pagan king who wanted nothing to do with God made a decree that because of the testimony of Daniel, you will worship his God. He still didn't say my God. He said his God. We live in a day, and by the way, I'm not trying to fearmonger anything, but we live in a day where if you just look at politics and socials and everything, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to squelch out Christianity, I'm telling you. They're trying to. Right is wrong, right is wrong, wrong is right. What we believe is hateful. They've gone beyond evolution. We were created in the image of God, and what are they trying to destroy right now? Just be whatever you want. All, not social, not Democrat, Republican, all to push God out of the picture. We live in a day where they're trying to get rid of God. We live in a day similar to what Daniel lived in. Yet we have freedom. I don't think there are independent Baptist churches in Babylon. My guess, all right? But we live in a day where we have that freedom. But yet we are going to have to stand sometimes, hopefully lovingly. Hopefully they see not a cruel, mean, obnoxious person, but someone who is praying, someone who is faithful, and then God will prosper them even in the most unlikely of situations. There was also a great blessing from the Lord. Daniel's willingness to stand before the Lord allowed the name of God to be lifted up by a pagan king in a pagan land, and God blessed him. The Lord desires this for all of us, but it's not always enjoyed by all of us. It takes seriousness. It takes patience. Most of all, it takes trust established through a consistent walk, just time with God. Trust. Think about trust, that word. It's a word we use, but it's a word most of us don't give out. Are you with me that we're a little picky who we trust today? I'm really picky. All right, someone knocks on my door. The other day, I was at my house, and I don't think I even told Tom this. Tom came over. He texted me. He fixed a light bulb in our car, and he was coming over to put it in. And it was later at night. He had texted me. I completely forgot he had texted me. So someone's at the door. You know what I do when I'm going to the door? I got a hold of my gun. I'm like, who's at my door? I never showed him. I don't think I pulled it on him. I'm like, who comes at this time? And I open up. Oh, he's here to help me. Here, let me walk you out. It was a great blessing. But we don't trust people today. And because of that, we haven't learned to trust him. People will always fail you at some point in your life. He never does. But you have to learn that by prayer. And just be faithful even when it seems like God has completely, by the way, this sounds carnal and horrible, but there will be days where you're convinced God has forgotten about you. There will be days that you're convinced that God is not listening. I didn't say he's not. I didn't say he isn't. I said you'll be convinced he's not. Because that's what Satan wants you to believe. But I promise you he will never leave you nor forsake you. He is listening. You remain faithful. You remain on your knees. Then you enjoy great prosperity. Don't quit. Remain faithful. And draw power from prayer with God. Lord, we love you. We thank you for the story of Daniel. And Lord, the great blessing that he received at the end of his life, the great freedom he received in the middle of a trial where he should have been killed, and he received great blessing. But Father, before that, he was found on his knees, he was found in prayer, and he was found faithful. Father, each and every one of us know the things we've heard tonight. This is not new information. Lord, this is a reminder. This is a reminder seen from a story of a man who you blessed because of this. Father, his faithfulness and his prayer life actually provoked people to be angry at him. It was the reason he ended up in the den of lions. And Lord, some of us would say, it's easier not to do that, but then we would never see the angel working in this den. Yes, sometimes Satan will fight, but Father, what great opportunity to see you defeat Satan in the middle of these battles. I pray, Lord, for Bensalem Baptist Church. I pray for those who call this home, for those, Father, who are battling Satan drastically right now. That, Father, they would be found on their knees. If they miss it, they just go the next day. They be found faithful. When they mess up, they keep going because we all do. They just keep getting back up. Help us, Father, to understand the principle. Help us, Father, to strive to be on our knees. Lord, it's something that we have to work at. And Father, we do it because we love you. With your head bowed and eyes closed, please, no one looking around. I'm going to ask you two questions. I can't have the power of God in prayer and him work or prosperous if I don't have Christ in my life. We did not mention that tonight. But I don't want to go tonight without giving you an opportunity to be saved. If you're here tonight and you say, Pastor, I really don't know for sure if I died tonight I'd go to heaven. I can't enjoy any of what I heard today because I don't know if I'm saved. And I'm battling that. I'm not going to embarrass you tonight. I'm not going to call you out, but I would like to just pray for you anonymously. You say, Preacher, I don't know. With no one looking, would you do me a favor? Just put your hand up and back down. Say, Preacher, I'm not sure. No one looking. We're not going to embarrass you. Put it up and back down. I'm not sure. Would you pray for me? The second question today. It's easy for a preacher at this point to put a guilt trip on. Are you praying? Are you faithful? Let me encourage you to just simply put it this way. If you've missed, start back up. Solomon said in inspiration of the Holy Spirit, a just man falleth 7 times and rises back up. Just righteousness is not an answer of perfection. It's when I fall, I get back up. Have you fallen? Get back up. Have you missed out? Get back on your knees. Have you gotten nervous and maybe backed off? Just get back. Faithfulness does not mean we quit. It just means we keep getting back up and going. It doesn't mean we ever stop. We're going to get hit in the teeth. We're going to get discouraged, and we just get back up and go. Remain faithful by just continuing to get back up and continuing to walk with God. Lord, tonight as we come and sing in this invitation time,